Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to talk about seasons, climates, and ecosystems. Are you ready? Let's get started. Now, last week we talked about this quite a lot. What causes the seasons? What you need to know this week is that there are two main causes. This is just a review. We've already pretty much covered this. The tilt of the Earth. Remember that the Earth is tilted just a little bit, so that part of the Earth is aiming toward the sun and part of the Earth is aiming away from the sun. That's one of the things that causes the seasons. The other thing that causes the seasons is the way that the Earth goes round and round the sun, just like in this picture right here. See how it goes round and round like this? That way, at different times of the year, different parts of the Earth are closer to the direct sunlight. That causes the seasons. Speaking of different parts of the Earth being closer to the sun than others, let's talk about what the tilt does to the divide between the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Here in our picture, this is the northern hemisphere up here. That's the top half. And in our picture, the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun. That means it's summertime in the north. Now, at the same time, the southern hemisphere, which is this bottom half down here, the southern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. Look, it's pointing away. More of the Earth is dark. It's tilted away from the sun. That means in the southern hemisphere, it's currently winter. Now, here's the shortcut. All you need to remember is that the seasons from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere are always opposite. Speaking of, which part of the Earth gets the most direct sunlight? Well, here's our picture of the Earth. We've got the North Pole and the South Pole, and here's the equator, and here's the sun. The sun seems very small because it's 93 million miles away. In real life, it's much, much bigger than the Earth. So here's our arrow showing direct sunlight. Where is it pointing? That's right, the equator. Now, what does all that lovely direct sunlight do to the air? This has a lot to do with our next topic, climate. Let's take a look. First of all, we already knew this. The direct sunlight is hot. Here it is right here. And we also know that hot air goes up. Have you ever seen a hot air balloon or even ridden in one? They heat up the air inside the balloon and the balloon goes up. The exact same thing happens to the air every day. When the sunlight heats the air at the equator, the air goes up and up and up, all the way until it gets up near the North Pole. At the North Pole, the air gets cold. Why? Not enough sunlight. The air gets cold and it goes down. It curves down and then down and down until it gets back to the equator, where it warms up and it goes up again. Get it? So, talking about climate, how do you know the difference between weather and climate? Well, here's the trick. If you pause this video right now and you step outside and you look up in the sky and you ask yourself, is it sunny or cloudy? What's the temperature? Is it raining or clear? That is today's weather. Weather is what is happening outside in the sky daily. Climate is sort of weather, but more. Climate is all the weather from every day, not only this year, but from the last 100 years, added all together and made an average. So what is the average weather? The average weather over many years is the climate. Weather is one day. Climate is all the days. Get it? Good. So now let's talk a little bit about climate. So far, we've talked about 3 general climate zones: polar, temperate, and tropical. Let's talk about each one. The polar climates are sometimes referred to as the high latitudes because they're up here at the top. The high latitudes hardly get any sunlight at all. Because of that, they're cold. In the middle, we have the middle latitudes. They get indirect sunlight. They get some, but not all the sunlight. It's indirect. Temperate climates are mild. That means it doesn't get too cold in the winter. It doesn't get too hot in the summer. It's just right in the middle. They're mild. Now, tropical climates we call the low latitudes. We call them the low latitudes because they're right here along the equator. And do you remember what number goes with the equator? 0. So all of the numbers that start at 0 and go up to here, those are called the low numbers or the low latitudes. The low latitudes get all the direct sunlight. They get all the sunlight. That means it's hot there. What about altitude? Do you think altitude makes a difference? Let's see. We live pretty much near the mountains. If you've ever gone on a trip into the mountains, maybe to go skiing or to have a nice drive with your family, then you know the higher up you get, the colder it gets. High altitude is colder. That's why whenever we have these lovely pictures of mountains, they've always got snow on top. Because all the way at the top of the mountains, it's colder. When you have low altitude, down here at the bottom of the mountains, that's warmer. See? High altitude, colder. Low altitude, warmer. Okay, let's talk about the water cycle. Now, I've got 1, 2, 3. These are the 3 steps of the water cycle that we're going to talk about today. Now, you're going to be also talking about this in science this year. So by the time this year is over, at the end of 6th grade, you're just going to be an expert on the water cycle. So let's talk about it a little bit. Here's number 1. Evaporation. Water starts in the ocean or a lake or a pond, or maybe just water sitting on the grass. The sun heats it. That turns it into a gas and it floats up into the air. Who'd have thunk it? That's what happens. Number 2 is when all that gas that's up in the air starts clumping together and it turns into clouds. See, if you look at our picture right here, see how this arrow goes from evaporation up here, condensation, and now we're these big fluffy clouds. Step 3 is precipitation. Oops, sorry, I'm blocking that a little bit. Precipitation means that when the clouds get heavy enough, they start to rain down and the water lands back on the earth again. We call that precipitation. Really, it means rain or snow. So what's the difference, Miss O'Daffer? How come sometimes it rains and sometimes it snows? It has to do with the temperature. If it's below freezing, the precipitation is snow. If it's above freezing, the precipitation is rain. That's all. Our last topic is ecosystems. And I've got here a lovely picture of an ecosystem. We've got trees and bushes and all these lovely little animals. Let's see what it's all about. Well, to be an ecosystem, you need plants and animals. Okay, we've got plants and animals here. Yep, okay. So far, so good. Next. They rely on each other to survive. Well, how do plants and animals rely on one another to survive? Well, bees and butterflies pollinate the plants to make more plants, and Animals carry seeds from where they fall to where they end up so that new plants can grow. And some animals eat plants. And some animals build their homes in plants. And some animals eat other animals that eat plants. So between their seeds and their flowers and what they eat and where they live, the animals and the plants all work together. That's what makes an ecosystem. Let me give you an example. This is our example ecosystem. See, we've got some animals here, we've got some plants, they're all together. Let's see what we have to say. This is the temperate forest ecosystem. Now we have quite a lot of temperate forest around us, around here. You know it's a temperate forest because it's got deciduous trees in it. Deciduous trees are the ones, see right here in this picture, where the leaves turn yellow and orange and fall off in the fall time, and then in the winter there's no leaves at all. Then in the spring, new leaves come out again. The only kind of tree that does that are deciduous trees. That's a whole category of trees. Trees where the leaves fall off and then grow back every year. Deciduous trees are the ones you find in the temperate forest. And you also find animals living with the deciduous trees. You'll find deer and squirrels and rabbits, all those kinds of animals that we have around here, really. They work together in order to protect one another. The animals eat the plants, bigger animals eat smaller animals, the animals carry around the seeds so that more plants can grow. They all work together in order to survive. That makes an ecosystem. Okay, that's it. We're all done. Have a great day.